It was raining hard that night, the kind of rain that seemed to wash away everything, pain, pride, and even the small flickers of hope that people carried in their hearts. Daniel Carter sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He was late. Again. His windshield wipers struggled against the storm as he tried to calm his racing mind. The clock on the dashboard blinked 7:42 p.m., and his heart sank. He was supposed to be at the restaurant at 7. But life had other plans for Daniel, it always did. He turned to the back seat, where his 5-year-old daughter Emma was fast asleep, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, its fur worn from too many hugs. The city lights reflected off her tiny face, and for a moment, Daniel forgot about everything, the failed marriage, the endless bills, the exhaustion of juggling 2 jobs, and the lonely ache that filled his nights. She was his whole world, his reason for fighting through each day. The rain blurred the world outside, and Daniel whispered to himself, "She deserves better." If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the power of love that finds you when you least expect it, like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story, this one might just touch your heart. Daniel parked the car outside the elegant restaurant, his stomach twisting with nerves. The moment he stepped out, the rain drenched him instantly. He had no umbrella, just a jacket he threw over Emma as he carried her in. Inside, the soft golden light, the clinking of glasses, and the scent of roses made him feel even more out of place. He wasn't used to this kind of world anymore, not since he'd lost everything. He scanned the room and spotted her, Olivia Hartman. CEO of a luxury design company, elegant, poised, beautiful in a way that felt almost untouchable. She sat by the window, her phone in hand, her eyes flicking up just as Daniel approached, wet, breathless, and apologetic. She looked annoyed at first. Who could blame her? He looked nothing like someone she would date. His clothes were plain, his shoes old, his face tired. He was a single father barely holding it together. But Emma stirred in his arms, rubbing her eyes, and when Olivia's gaze softened at the sight of her, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. He apologized for being late, explaining how he'd just come from work and couldn't find a sitter. He expected Olivia to end the date right there. Instead, she asked the waiter for an extra chair, for Emma. It wasn't the evening she had imagined. She was used to polished men in suits, not struggling fathers with gentle eyes. But something about Daniel's humility, his sincerity, drew her in. As they talked, she found herself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in months. She noticed how Daniel's eyes lit up whenever he mentioned Emma, how he spoke of teaching her to ride a bike, of cooking pancakes on Sundays, of bedtime stories about magical forests and brave little girls. Olivia, who had spent years buried in boardrooms and deadlines, felt something stir inside her that she hadn't felt in so long, warmth. The night went on, and Daniel began to relax. He told her about his late wife, how he'd lost her to cancer when Emma was just 2. He spoke softly, his voice trembling, not for pity but because he still felt the ache of love and loss. Olivia listened, eyes glistening. There was a silence that settled between them, the kind that said more than words ever could. Emma, now fully awake, sat coloring on a napkin. Then, out of nowhere, she looked up at Olivia, her voice small and pure, and said something that made the world stop. "Miss Olivia," she whispered, "are you the angel Mommy sent to make Daddy smile again?" Olivia froze. Tears filled her eyes instantly, her carefully composed face breaking into something raw, something human. She reached for Emma's little hand, unable to speak. Daniel looked away, his heart twisting. He wanted to apologize again, to say Emma didn't understand, but the truth was, maybe she did. Maybe she saw what adults couldn't. Olivia wiped her tears quickly, laughing softly through them, and said, "Maybe, sweetheart." Maybe she did. The rest of the dinner was a blur of gentle laughter, shy smiles, and the feeling that something bigger than either of them was unfolding quietly, like a forgotten melody returning to life. In the weeks that followed, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about them. Daniel didn't fit her world, but he made her feel something her world never had: realness. She visited his diner one afternoon, pretending to be in the neighborhood. He was behind the counter, flipping burgers and smiling at customers, his apron stained, his hair a little messy, and his eyes lighting up when he saw her. They talked again, this time without expectations. Emma ran up to hug her, and that was it. Olivia's heart was gone. Days turned into months. Olivia found herself helping Daniel with Emma's school projects, showing up at her soccer games, laughing in the small apartment kitchen while Daniel burned dinner yet again. She had all the success in the world, but in their little home, surrounded by laughter and love, she felt something she'd never found in her glass towers of power: belonging. But not everything came easy. Her board disapproved. "He's not your type," they said. "He doesn't fit your image." And Daniel, too, began to pull away, afraid he'd ruin her reputation, afraid that her world was too different from his. One evening, after a long silence between them, Daniel told her maybe she deserved someone who could give her more. Olivia stared at him, her eyes trembling, and said softly, "You give me everything I ever needed, a reason to feel again." But before Daniel could answer, Emma ran in, holding a drawing of the three of them holding hands under a rainbow. On top of it, she'd written in messy letters, "Our family." It was the simplest thing, a child's drawing, but it shattered every wall between them. Olivia broke down crying, holding Emma and Daniel close. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And that night, for the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel like a man barely surviving, he felt like a man finally living. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below telling us what part moved you the most, and share this with someone who still believes in love that finds you when you least expect it. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings come from the most broken moments? Because for Daniel, Olivia, and little Emma, one late night and one whispered question changed everything, and proved that sometimes, love doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when you need it most.